Welcome, misfits, to this episode of Skeptic and Ranting. Evidence that God is real? Oh my. Where tonight we are watching a video called Evidence That God is Real. New Proof for God with Trent Horn from the channel Catholic Truth. So won't you join James W. and myself, Amy Newman, as we have some fun with some old age arguments. Right, I do want to thank everyone out there for joining us out there on the intertubes. Wow, I don't even know how they make it fit.
That's what she said.
That's right, baby. Or he, or a little bit of both. Anyway, we are sending
everything in between.
Everything in between. Look, as long as you're... please don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe, because then you get access to that all button icon to get reminders to join our live streams. What's up, interweb?
Hey guys.
We are a skeptic channel, including the two schmucks that you see hosting before you. However, at the end of the video, we will be opening up the floodgates, or rather the open mic, so anyone can say what's on their mind about the topic. We'll also give everyone the chance to have their own opening and closing statements. Atheist or theist, liberal or conservative, come as you are. Just not on my sheets. Every time I wash, you throw it in. Once again, comes right back out. I wash again.
Like the blue dress.
James, sometimes you just gotta get that stain out. Yes, exactly. But also, you can help us make more fun content and some unique perks by heading over to patreon.com/Amy Newman, including awesome Patreons like us from the table. As well as getting tickets for Better at the Better Conversations event at Tart.live. Woohoo! And also uploading in the Better non-believer community, Ian Davenport.
Thanks, Ian.
And of course, as we listen to creationist claims, we like to, release our blood pressure by listening to a grumpy old cuss who makes us go bleep, 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 bleep. Because
he makes it better.
Claims of like 6,000 years old, well, they kind of make us go crazy. But yes, we are also sending love to 3 princesses in 1, Diana Zumet, woohoo! As well as, the resident archaeologist who has done awesome episodes of Talk Skeptic to me, like how we actually got to Sacredness, which is generally just come in there and do a new type of paint, and sending love to Pat Lowinger, and of course... Dale Pastel and all of the skeptics are just kind of asking for a little bit of empirical evidence, which is kind of going to be the theme tonight, and I'm sure they're going to give a ton of it. Spoiler alert, they're not going to give a ton of it. But yes!
Don't prejudge them, Amy.
Don't
be optimistic.
That's right.
Be optimistic. Don't be a Calvinist.
Brand new evidence, never before seen, packed with wisdom. We're also sending love to kitty overlords. In fact, all cats, dogs, it doesn't matter. If you have a turtle, we welcome them all on there because we don't judge other animals. But we're sending love to Dave Gar! And we're sending love to the lead hyena of the pack, Scott Duke! Because we were kind of just talking about not looking down on other animals. And so that, along with Regos, who helps us run our Skeptic Bible study, which we kind of take
can't get through it without him.
Interpretation.
Can't get through it without him.
And last, but certainly not least, we're sending love to Rachel Holland.
Thanks, Rachel.
Who helps us remind us that the Bible would never support biblical slavery. It's not like it's the transatlantic slave trade. You know what I'm saying? That would be that would lead to wars and bad stuff.
Because the people in the Bible didn't even know about the Atlantic Ocean. Oh, okay. There you go.
Exactly. And so you can't really blame an all-knowing God because he didn't know about it yet, if you think about it.
There you go.
Exactly. And so, yes, thank you to all of our Patreons, along with the people in chat, our mods, and of course, viewers like you. But before we get into the opposing side, contractually obligated, but yes, evidence that God is real? Well, I'm open-minded. However, what I care about is good evidence. And I always love the claim when something theologically new is about to be presented. However, much like secondhand Christmas gifts, I'm starting to doubt Thomas Aquinas is the hip new boy he says he is. The Kalam
Say Thomas.
He's wearing like the hat backwards. Hello, fellow students. The Kalam cosmological argument for the existence of God is not new. And like a drug dealer with something inside their butt, they try to smuggle in God with some vague language like begins to exist, with premises that can't be fed in because no one can prove that they're true and are not taken seriously within the world of actual physics. How could something come from nothing? Dude, bro, whoa. And neither is the contingency argument with a necessary being, which is really argument ad pun joke, as if existence itself had a necessary being. And that necessary being suddenly became anthropomorphic and made everything, which is like a major promotion, if you ask me. Something that exists in every universe or world. Or so the Germans would have us believe. Thank you, Normie. Hell, Marvel has been using that concept in their comics for decades. In fact, Wanda Maximoff has something to say about this Yahweh fellow. If he would ever show up. By now, apologists are normally taking pot shots at empiricism so that we can go to the land of imagination. Oh, what is the greatest possible thing you can think of? A plane? A crane? A train? A nuclear bomb dropped off a Boeing B-29 Superfortress bomber while they drank lemonade? I'm not even sure what a powerful person. Oh yeah, definitely. You gotta spike it. Would be like without making them into superheroes. Or I guess supervillains. So, evidence that God is real? Sure. Just no good evidence. We do have lots of eyewitness testimony out there, or life-changing and near-death experiences, along with some proposed arguments with no way of testing them in the real world. However, we don't have anything we can verify with the strongest methodology for finding truth: science. So until we can find something more tangible in a lab, I'm going to metaphorically be sending my believing friends behinds back to the drawing board. Thank you. And all right. How are you tonight, James? And what do you think? We looking for some evidences for God?
Oh, we're doing all right over here. We're doing all right. We're getting ready for to watch the video. So, hey guys, I hope everyone's doing good tonight. We got some new subscribers, so welcome to the channel. If you're a new subscriber, happy to have you as part of the crew. And yeah, let's just get right into the video.
Sounds good. That's right. I am sending love to everyone out there. Well, I'm sending love, first of all, to Gizmo, who I see is super excited to be watching.
Oh, he's ready. He's ready.
Video. And with that, we are going to be moving on to the opposing side. Though if you have comments, questions, or one-liners, please feel free to tag James W. or myself at Amy Newman in chat. And all right, we are looking at evidence that God is real, new proof for God with Trent Horn.
New proof.
New
100% more evidence.
And I definitely feel like this is going to be a take we have never seen before.
Most likely. Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Catholic Truth Podcast, bringing you the truth of Jesus Christ and the Catholic faith that comes down to us for 2,000 years. We are here to help you love your faith, to know your faith, and to live your faith with purpose and passion. We want you to be transformed by Christ and set on fire by His Spirit. Sometimes on this channel,
on fire, like in hell.
I would like to introduce Trent Horn, who is a Catholic convert. He is a Catholic speaker and author of several books, and a Catholic apologist, which means he defends the Catholic faith for a living. Most people know that he is a staff apologist at Catholic Answers, and many people might not know that he now has his own podcast called The Council of Trent, which I highly recommend.
I bet you guys didn't know that.
Podcast for refuting different religions and beliefs and helping people to understand the truth of the Catholic faith. And Trent has dialogued with countless atheists and agnostics and skeptics, and he's even had several public debates. So, you know, when it comes to the topic
like
of
what's going to happen tonight,
helping people to know God, you know, I can't think of many other people to invite onto this show but Trent Horn. So I would like to introduce you, Trent, and I would like to welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a treat to be here.
Wonderful
it's a pleasure
to have you.
to have you here.
The pleasure is all over here.
With someone growing up, and I asked many questions. How do we know God exists? How do we know that he's real? I mean, where's the proof? And 5,000 years ago, we had belief and faith. We just said believe, because we had the Bible, but now we have science. And do they contradict each other?
No, they're still saying believe because we have the Bible. That's
questions. Do they contradict?
Basically where they're at.
Many people answer the questions, well, you just have to believe, or you just have to have faith.
There you go.
Mystery. These are not really satisfying answers. And I find from my long apologetics history that many people are leaving the faith because they're not receiving answers to their questions. And I find, last time I checked, I think there was 4% of the earth was atheist. But with that being said,
we need to recheck that data a little bit.
Believers or skeptics, and it's not because God doesn't exist. I think it's because perhaps we haven't given them good reasons to believe, and they haven't looked up or done a lot of real research on this topic. And I would like to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that science has greatly benefited mankind. The inquiry of the scientific can be traced back to before the Middle Ages, of course, and ancient Greek and Roman philosophers. But when Christianity emerged on the scene, it's not like science just died or something like that. There were actually a lot of
breakthroughs. The Catholic Church decided to start burning people for questioning their faith.
Water mills, things like that. But in the Middle Ages, we have people like Albert Magnus and others who sought to understand God's creation by engaging in what was called at that time natural philosophy, that everything had a theistic understanding to it, because everyone generally believed God existed. It wasn't until the 19th century
they didn't know any better.
Science or scientists referred to the strict discipline of seeking natural explanations for the things we observe. And science, as like I said, has greatly benefited society, but it doesn't mean science can answer every question we have. And I think a lot of people think, maybe there are mysteries out there. I don't need to believe in God because one day science will figure it all out. But if you talk to physicists, if you talk to other people in hard sciences, they will tell you that science can tell us a lot.
I want to know what theology has discovered in the past 100 years. That's what I'm open-minded, but
it'll never tell everything.
Never discovered anything.
There are certain questions that are just off limits to science. Like, is science important? That's a value question. Does objective morality exist?
No.
If the universe came into existence from nothing, what caused that? If it's nothing, nothingness, science relies on matter and energy for its explanations.
Not sure.
State of nothingness doesn't have any scientific explanation involved in it whatsoever. So there are a lot of questions, and here we can use reason and philosophy to arrive at an ultimate cause of the entire.
There are gaps.
We can use philosophy.
We can't answer every question.
We can,
and ultimately, we have good reasons to believe that the world was.
We don't have evidence
by the God of,
but we do have plenty of philosophy.
And before I forget, for our audience out there, if you know someone who is struggling with atheism, if you would like to know more on the topic yourself, besides Trent's podcast, which I will link below, I'd like to recommend his book. It's called Answering Atheism, and I will put it right here on display for all to see. But it's a very good case for the existence of God and just the arguments.
Let me guess, Amy. Let me guess.
Say it.
Let me guess. Here.
Okay.
Why is there something rather than nothing you don't know, right? Therefore, God. Ooh.
And
Did we just sum everything up here?
I love the straw man. That's always you atheists think that something came from nothing, or you believe you came from nothing. And then my go-to example is just, please give me an actual example of nothing except for, someone's bank account.
We don't know what nothing is. We've never seen a nothing. Yes. We don't know if an actual nothing is even possible.
Exactly. And so it is a straw man that is not what atheists actually believe, but we are sending you love. In fact, just like Randolph is sending us love, he says theologies have progressed and becoming more effective at brainwashing. Take Islam, for instance. They figured out that people brainwash themselves while starving. I will say, it seems that in tough times, people rely back on superstitious beliefs. And so I think
Right.
that as we move forward, I hope that non-believer will continue to become, I know it's the number one here and hopefully all over.
Well,
Okay.
if you're starving, you can always say, well, it sucks, but at least I'll go to heaven when I die, so maybe it's not so bad, right?
Exactly. Don't worry about that. In the next life, it'll be fine. And
Yeah.
hey, I will say, Randolph, at the end of this video, we will be opening it up to the open mic. So keep on tagging James W. and myself at
Randolph
Amy
will.
Newman with any comments, questions, or one-liners, because clearly we're going to be getting a lot of wisdom tonight. I can feel it. It's going to be packed filled with newness, which I assume is a trait, and they can't prove otherwise. And so...
While they're right that we haven't answered every question with science, we've answered a lot more than we have not answered, and we haven't answered anything from religion.
I want to not. I don't want to shit on philosophy. I like philosophy. I think it's important. I actually.
I'll shit on it for you.
I know. I think that a lot of non-believing, skeptic, atheist philosophers are some of the best people at detangling theology. And so you almost need some boots on the ground. Nonetheless, it always amazes me the theologians, the apologists, I guess they're forced to, that are like, but we should be using this instead of. It's like, no. You have gone out and you've philosophized, you have created these wonderful syllogisms, and you didn't get it all over my sheets. Good job. Now please actually go out into the real world and test them. That's all I'm asking. A little bit. But
yeah,
yes,
they deal in the abstract. That's where they hide they can hide their God easily in there.
Exactly. Well, James, like I said, they just got to shove their God into a gap. I wish there was a term for that we should create something.
Many times we either don't know what to say or how to say it, but this book presents both.
Kinky.
And I think it's a good book, and I highly recommend it. So today we're going to be discussing specifically some proof for the existence of God. But it's not necessarily proof the way we think of like 2 + 2 is 4.
It's not real proof.
First of all, I would like to thank him for actually using a mathematical proof in his example of a proof. But I like how his literal next sentence is like, but it's not like that.
Ooh, it's not proof. It's just proof with a lowercase p.
Exactly.
Types of proofs for God. Can you explain a little bit more about what that means?
Please.
Right, yeah. So some people think, oh, well, if it's a proof, that means I should be able to read it. Anybody can read it. And everybody's going to agree that it firmly establishes beyond any doubt whatsoever the existence of God. And you're right, mathematical proofs, at least simple mathematical proofs, can do that. But that's because you're working out axioms that everybody already agrees with and nobody really denies, like that 1 = 1, for example. But the catechism, I think it's around like paragraphs 33 and 34.
I'm glad we could at least start on 1 = 1. We're doing good so far.
Is that the proofs for God are not like proofs in the natural sciences. It's more like a series of converging and convincing arguments. So the proofs for God, and there's different arguments that can be put forward. Some are stronger than others. The ones that I like to offer tend to be deductive proofs. They argue from universal principles to a particular conclusion, namely that God exists. And so if you believe that the premises are more likely to be true than false, and there's no error in the reasoning, then you've got yourself a good argument for believing God.
There you go. Now.
So basically what we're saying...
There's the rub, ladies and gentlemen. If we can assume these premises are true, then there you go. Hey, we got you on board.
Just go down the rabbit hole.
Just exactly.
Come on down.
As the theist side says, I mean, neither side has absolute proof for anything, but what we're saying is there's more proof for the existence of God than not, and it makes much more sense to believe in God
Nah.
than not. Is that what we're
Come
saying?
on, man.
Yeah, I would
Rub
say
that
that
land
He doesn't even believe
there
that.
is evidence against the existence of God. I mean, even St. Thomas Aquinas put forward two arguments against God: the problem of evil and the problem
Once
of
again, that is what I like about these new arguments. No. Let's back to Thomas Aquinas.
Well, so Thomas Aquinas put up two weak arguments against God, and then he smacked them down and said, "Suck it, atheist." He didn't put on the strongest arguments.
Well, I
against
always
God.
find, and they're going to talk about it later, the arguments that they find convincing within the atheist community, I don't think we deal with very often. But don't want to do too much spoilers.
coming to know the causes around them and precluding God, the argument from incomplete knowledge. But when you bracket that with all the evidence for God, I would say outweighs it.
Absolutely. And so why don't we
Let's hear about this evidence.
And maybe we could talk about the first cause, which is causal finitism. And could you talk about a little bit about that and how it points to God?
Sure. So I thought it'd be fun today to talk about some new arguments that people have been developing about the existence of God.
Arguments.
A classic argument for the existence of God is the cosmological argument. And there's two types of
Ooh, there we go. The hot new argument that we've never heard for. Cosmological argument. We're off to
why is there something rather than nothing?
Seeks to
You
answer
don't
the
know.
question, why is there something rather than nothing? Dealing with the universe, whether it's necessary, it has to exist. We see, well, it doesn't have to exist. It's contingent.
Don't know that.
It must be a necessary.
Don't know that either.
Exists that explains why the universe exists. Another kind of cosmological argument says that the universe had a finite beginning in the past. And so all of space-time...
I like how he's got one for either one. He's like, well, if it's infinite, it's this. But if it's finite, it's kind of God too, if you think about it.
Energy began from nothing, and so a cause must have brought it into existence from nothing. The most famous version of this is
he's got electrolytes.
Wait. Can I hear that again? What was that?
The logical argument says that the universe had a finite beginning in the past. And so all of space-time, matter, and energy began from nothing. And so a cause must have brought it into existence from nothing.
And they make fun of us for this. Did you just hear that? That was a lot of work coming from nothing. That man needs to do your auto parts and your bill and your taxes. All right.
The most famous version of this argument is the Kalam cosmological argument.
Ooh, another new one. Oh, I've never heard this before. Please continue.
Cutting edge.
What makes it different is that the Kalam argument seeks to prove the past is finite, and you can do that in one of two ways. One way is through scientific investigation, like Big Bang cosmology, but that's very tentative. I think that's a weaker kind of evidence to use. The stronger is philosophical arguments, and the philosophical arguments that an actually infinite past cannot obtain, either because actual infinites are impossible or because you can't form them sequentially. Like you can't, if every
infinities are a concept. The point is you never get to them. But
yeah,
I always
it's abstract concepts.
I mean, I was about to say I always love how it trips people up. I guess I shouldn't hate on people for it tripping up, because the concept of infinity really isn't a concept that a consciousness is supposed to understand. We can only understand the idea of it. And yet the idea of it really has nothing to do with a creator of the universe. They make it so anthropomorphic. That is the funny thing about a god. It's a dude. Not that
instead of natural. Well, we look around and we see natural forces in operation everywhere. We don't see any purpose or rhyme or reason. It just seems to be things happening based on the laws of nature, laws of physics. Indeed. Now all of a sudden they're going to say, well, okay, but at some point that stops, and you've got the dude behind the curtain.
Weird thing. And yet it is like a dude behind the curtain. There are no laws of physics that stem from a being. And they conflate the word being. It really is. I use the joke, but it's almost a pun. They are conflating two different words. They are saying at first they start with being. Don't you believe in just a necessary being, as in something has to be necessary. We have to be. It's almost Shakespearean. What is to be?
Right.
And then they slowly morph that being into like a dude, a necessary being, which is like a man. And that is different than what they were just talking about. It's like this necessary, we need to exist, composed to, okay, well, this necessary being that, hey, he also created the universe. And if you really think about it, he cares who you have sex with, and all these other Abrahamic religion specific laws as you get closer and closer to their specific God.
And it's a conflation, because here you have like the Catholic Church, like theologically is very, very liberal, and they try to conflict with science as little as possible, and they just work around whatever science says and weave God in around the edges and put him off to the side. He's there, but you can't see him, but trust us.
Sure.
Evolution's true, but God's making it happen. He's guiding the whole process.
These are very deistic arguments. These are arguments that get used across many religions. I notice that a lot of Dawa channels tend to use these type of arguments. Catholics tend to use these arguments, and then liberal theists. And look, we actually would prefer that you be a science skeptic based theist than the 6,000-year-old day earth creationists, because those people are actually detrimental. We love you. I mean, you should come on the channel and talk to us, because we'll give you all the time in the world. Nonetheless, these arguments are just intellectual is junk popcorn, trying to think of the right word.
Yeah.
They're just old arguments. I'm waiting for the new fresh ones that are going to be based in science.
Well, what they're doing, where they're going off the rails, is they're constructing something that's not falsifiable. You're just accepting everything science gives you, and then saying, yeah, but God is the cause of it all. And that's not falsifiable, because you can't prove that there's no hidden dimension behind this one where God really is. We just have no reason to think so, that there actually is.
It should be as empirical as the Coke can, as empirical as the soda can, in that we should be able to all verify it. We should be able to almost be forced to believe it, just like we are forced to believe in gravity, and yet that doesn't seem to be the case.
And these they'll come out and tell you, even their books tell you, he interacted with the world on a daily basis thousands of years ago. He was a main character. He was coming down. He was doing things. He was kicking butt, taking names. He was actively intervening on behalf of his people. He was actively crushing his enemies. He was doing shit, talking to people. And at some point, he just decided he got tired of that, and he's just going to hide in the God dimension. He's not going to interact with anything anymore.
Exactly. It used to be he had exposition mode, where he just like decorated, because things had to be fabulous and everything had to be written down. And then
make sure you cut the tip off of those sticks while you're at it.
And then he had like stabby mode, where he had to take names and kick ass. In planets sometimes, which is always a good amount number to kill. But keep on tagging us with your questions. Pat says, remember, they argue for a finite beginning in time, and then say that all other laws of the universe are in use until you come, kinky, to God, who himself is outside space and time. infinite. And yes, they are basically saying nothing can be infinite. Everything has to be in time. Also, have you heard about this infinite thing that we have? It's like, but
Right,
what about the rule you set up?
It's like they're saying everything that begins to exist must have a cause, but that doesn't apply to God because he always existed. So therefore, we don't need to give you a cause for him.
Don't need him at all. Exactly.
We don't need to
Don't
give
need a
you a
cause
cause
for
because
him.
we don't have a cause, but we don't need to give you one because that shit don't apply to him.
But if you just joined us, we are watching evidence that God is real.
Every day in the past happens one day at a time. You cannot have today. Today will never arrive. Now, there are some objections to the philosophical arguments for the finitude of the past, because people will say, well, we don't understand infinity, or if the past was beginningless, you could do that. There has been a slate of arguments defending a theory called causal finitism, as a term coined by the Baylor University philosopher Alexander Pruss. Pruss's contention is that causal chains, he tries to take it away from time and infinity and just focus on causal chains and saying, look, you can't have, if you have an effect, you cannot have an infinite series of causes before that effect. Otherwise, the effect is never actually explained. And so Pruss...
that's the same as the infinite regress.
Wait, we can go back to Planck time. That is the farthest back we can go. It breaks down because at that point, it is a singularity, which is something that is both massive and small. And so we don't understand how to bridge quantum mechanics and general relativity together. And so we just can't look back any further because we don't know how to mesh the two. But that is the actual point.
And you have to consider in that model, time is a physical property, just like matter and space. So time was wrapped up all in that singularity too, at least our understanding of time.
And we forget that it is space-time, that every point in time has a marker with a point in space, and they are connected. And beyond, when you are all smushed, you can't have that. If everything is on that same marker, there's nowhere to have time, nowhere to have space.
What would time even mean in a state like that? We don't even know.
That doesn't mean that there isn't a before. There could be a before the Big Bang. That, I think, is an incoherent concept currently. But who knows? We could figure out how to mesh those two together.
We can't describe it right now in a way that makes sense.
And what is up, Leo?
Leo.
And in love. We are watching some serious wisdom. It's new proof for God with Trent Horn. And I would say it's like you order a pizza and it's only like within a day to 1,000 years. So, new.
To show that this kind of infinite series can't happen. And there's a lot of thought experiments like this in the literature to show, well, you can't.
Empirical, exactly. But empirical evidence?
One famous example is Thomson's lamp. It's a lamp that you turn from at noon, it's off, 12:30, it's on, 12:45, it's off, 12:52 and 30 seconds, it's on again, on off in halving intervals. And so if there are an infinite number of intervals between noon and 1, the question then arises, well, what is the state of the lamp at 1 o'clock? Is it on or is it off? It seems like if you do the mathematical formula, it's both. But in real life, lamps can't be on and off at the same time. So that's one example. Another one that Pruss puts forward is the Grim Reaper paradox. This would be the idea.
Bubble will know about that one.
In a finite time interval, there's a being called a Grim Reaper that it kills you unless you're already dead. There's one that will kill you at 1, but another one at 12:30 set to kill you, another at 12:15, another at 12:07, 12:03, and 30 seconds. The idea here is that
Sounds
there's
like
an
torture.
infinite number
Now-
of reapers. They only kill you if you're not dead.
Now, you probably all want to run to your nearest Catholic church in the morning and convert because of the Grim Reaper paradox. That's hard-hitting stuff.
The
Don't
funny
forget to
thing-
miss morning mass.
None of these arguments are why, almost, because sometimes, but generally, this is not why
Right.
believers believe.
Right.
And Pat says, we don't even need to consider the beginning of the universe. We can claim that we don't know and be perfectly fine. We aren't claiming certitude via some divine agent of creation. And it's true. We don't need to put the period on that paragraph. We can keep on looking for as long as we need. We don't need to answer that question. Saying I don't know sometimes is scary. Nonetheless, when we don't know, it is the correct answer.
Well, like, we don't currently have a very good model for abiogenesis. We don't know how it happened. That does not mean that we have to consider creationism as a rational, plausible explanation on par with modern science just because we can't tell you everything. We can't answer every question. That we have to consider your mythology as plausible. We don't.
What annoys me so much about them attacking abiogenesis is it's like one of the moments that science is being humble, because all of the data leads to abiogenesis being a natural event. That
Some type
doesn't
of natural
mean
event, yeah.
that they have recreated the exact model. Nonetheless, it is just hilarious because none of the data points towards a supernatural event. I would love to see some data pointing in that direction, but
all the data suggests that there is some type of natural process at work.
But it's just like when they take
Like everything else.
shots at like dark matter, dark energy, and just stuff that they know nothing about, and it is the cutting edge of science. And once again, all of the scientists looking into that subject tread very carefully around it, and I find that the creationists take that treading and just kind of pee over it.
Well, they're desperate. They're looking for gaps in the knowledge to hide their God in. It's what they've been doing. Science has been closing those gaps for centuries, and they're running out of space to hide their God in. They don't have very many gaps to hide him in anymore, so they have to protect the few that they have very fiercely, and they do.
Oh my, but we are watching evidence that God is real. We're getting to the new proofs, I'm sure.
Or just logical paradoxes.
As soon as the clock strikes noon, you can't continue to live, but none of the Reapers kills you because there's always one before him. So it's like you can't live and you can't
Make
die.
a good
Creates
video
paradox.
game. I'm digging
There's
it.
lots more like these, and I think it's fascinating to investigate. But I think Pruss is really onto something here. That infinity, when it's left in the realm of mathematics, it makes sense. But when you try to apply it to the actual world, it doesn't, and that would include an infinite past or infinite causes. That doesn't make sense.
Does that apply to a God?
And so that would put us towards the idea of being a finite.
Exempt.
Like, I know that stuff gets a little complicated, but I think it's helpful for people to look out at that.
Yeah, the first time I had heard about that, reading about it, it was a little bit complicated too. But when I thought about an infinite amount of days before today, infinite meaning infinite, forever meaning,
right?
Oh, we're never going to arrive at today because it's always infinity. If every day there's always, it just never can arrive at today. So, but we are at today, so therefore we can't have.
We are not living in infinites. We are
right.
We are generally applying ourselves to Newtonian physics.
Infinite past, and I thought that was very interesting.
Right.
And therefore we have.
We did not evolve to consider infinite.
And I forget what is that what's it called, paradox that they try to bring up, Zero's paradox, that I believe gets solved with certain calculus equations at this point, but can be
What,
generally
dividing by 0 or
but can be generally solved by, it just doesn't work that way. We're not
certain
cutting
type of
things
math?
in half and a half and a half and a half. It just turns, you have to walk 3 feet to get to your destination, and you just walk the 3 feet. It's not these infinite paradox that are happening, because if life were like that, it would be insanity.
I used to say that
Zeno's paradox.
so
There you go.
so you can never go at the speed of light, right? Because of the physics and the equations like that. But you could go 99% of the speed of light. But what if you went 99.9%? Well, you'd be going faster than 99, but still not the speed of light. But what if you went 99.99? Well, that's still faster, but it's not. So it's almost like you could go infinitely faster without breaking by just adding nines. But I don't think
Kind
that
of
works
shove
in
in more
reality.
nines.
Yeah.
Also, that's what she said. Probably.
Well, it's like there's a mathematical proof that like 0.9 repeating forever is equal to 1. It is actually the same thing. How that works, I don't know. Leo probably knows way more than that about it.
Oh, I will say, Leo does. All the Grim Reaper paradox shows is that the set has no first element, doesn't begin. The apologists then try to argue that you can't thereby have a set with no first element. Why, yes, you can. Yeah,
Thanks,
I
Pat.
feel like they're just trying to fudge around with math.
Past was beginningless, then you could get here because there's an infinite amount of time. To which I would respond, well, why didn't the present happen yesterday or the day before that? It would have been accomplished an infinite time period ago. Like I said, when you
Maybe in a different universe it is. Who knows? Time could go backwards in another universe.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Another argument I wanted to talk about today was the modal ontological argument for God's existence.
Once again,
what exactly is that for our audience?
So
this is ontological arguments say that God, by his nature, must exist. That there's something just in the concept of God that requires that God exists. And traditionally, most people have, and I believe the classical ontological argument formed by St. Anselm is faulty. He basically said, well, God is greater than which nothing can be conceived, but if I can think of God in my mind, there's something greater than that, a God who really exists. That doesn't prove that God actually exists. It only proves that if he exists, then he is necessary and he's the greatest conceivable being. Philosopher named Alvin Planting a work drawing on is Charles Hartshorne or Norman Malcolm, one of the two, or I'm
Malcolm Norman.
Drawing on that work has used something called modal logic, which deals with necessity and possibility to kind of
Eddie about that.
And it goes like this: that if God exists, he's a necessary being. All right. So
I want to say the people that use this argument, the most annoying thing is they always they say, how could it be any other way? Even though throughout history, gods have been defined in multiple different ways. If you just look at all the pantheons, there may have just been one creator god among like a dozen different ones. But they're always like, how could there even be a god without a necessary being? I don't know. You're making this up as you go along. You tell me.
Yeah, and that's the way religion has always worked. It evolves as new knowledge and new beliefs and new
James, don't trigger
philosophies come out.
You're saying
They
evolved?
modify their religion evolves. Yeah.
Dare you? I know. I will say this is the one thing I will give them. Okay. I like to give as many olive branches as I can. And so he's wearing a Goonies t-shirt. I think we have to give credit where it's due. Nonetheless.
I mean, that's almost as like the guy, remember the guy wearing the steampunk goggles, Amy? For the Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, the steam goggles.
Anyone who cosplays is good in my book. But Pat says, I am now calling this the brute assertion for God argument. It does nothing to demonstrate God. It really doesn't.
Not at
How
all.
do we know that God wasn't consumed in the act of creation, killing himself? God is dead. I not only love that question because they never think it goes with the same contingency, guys. They give their definition and then they can't. The incredulity just begins immediately. I'm like, what if it was two gods? What if it had to be three or even four? The four gods had to come together and do like a transforming, well, what the hell was the Transformers come together act? And
Like Captain Planet, where they all
yeah,
merged
exactly.
their powers to make Captain Planet.
And
Yeah.
then, just like Pat says, then they had to die. So now all the gods are dead. But it was 4 or 5 specific gods who are now
Well,
dead. And they have no
I mean,
answers.
imagine that. Imagine living forever. Imagine infinite existence as a god. Like you would already have done everything possible to do an infinite number of times. After a while, wouldn't you just wish yourself out of existence? The boredom would be
It creates so many
terrible.
paradoxes that it's ridiculous, because if you know everything, you've done everything. I honestly, if you've
thought
done
about
everything, why would you even create humanity? Technically, you've already created humanity. You've already seen all the good, all the bad. Like, can I tell you why, James? Can I tell you why? I've been saying this more and more.
Do it.
It's because gods are contingent on us. Like, if you listen to every story, there are explanations for how we came to be. And so you almost always, this being is just waiting around for us to do shit. Like he revolves around us so much that it's almost like we created him or her, whatever, depending on the mythology.
And they'll say, no, God is perfect and he is completely happy and content existing in his own state. He doesn't need anything. He doesn't want anything. He's perfectly content. But I mean, if that were true, he created humans. Why did he do that? Because he tells us he wanted beings to worship him. So, I mean, based on that, he has desires. He has things that he wants. He has infinite power to be able to get everything he wants. So,
and it's just a very weird request. I don't know why a god would want to be worshipped. I know that this comes very natural to believers. They're like, of course you want to show his glory. It's like that by worshiping, you're going, okay, that sounds a little, don't want to use the C word, but, because culty gets a little triggery. But we're sending love to everyone out there as we watch definitely new evidences that God is real.
Something, though, is possible. It exists in a possible world. The actual world is the world you and I exist in. Possible worlds are just different ways of describing the actual world. Okay, there's a possible world where we never had this interview. And there's other possible worlds where there's no such thing as podcasting or things like that. What the modal ontological argument says that it is possible that God exists, or it is possible a necessary being exists. If it is possible a necessary being exists, that must mean that a necessary being exists in one of these possible worlds. But a necessary being, by definition, exists in every possible world. So if it is possible for the...
I had to sneeze. Nonetheless, this is an important thing that I need to bring up, is that possibility and impossibility both need to be demonstrated. So it's lovely that you can be like, well, if it's possible that my God exists in some world, well, then he must exist in one world because he is the universal. So he's going to exist in all possible worlds. Therefore, God exists. That is, my friend, if you could be an Olympics gymnastics team, please go represent our country.
Being, if he exists in one possible world, then he must exist in all of the possible worlds. And if the being exists in all the possible worlds, it must exist in the actual world, because the actual world is just one possible world. It just happens to be real. So, therefore, necessary being exists, therefore God exists. Most philosophers say the
Boom.
argument actually is not invalid. It works really well. But the first premise they have concerns
I like that hedging right there. Most philosophers will be like, yeah, it's probably not bad, probably.
about. If it's merely possible that a necessary being exists, then you could reverse the argument. You could say, well, it's possible God doesn't exist. And if it's possible God doesn't exist, he doesn't exist in any possible world, so he doesn't exist in the actual world. You could run it in reverse. But if you're talking about a genuine metaphysical possibility, just like when you spin the roulette table, it's going to be
Metaphysical.
or
I
double
know.
zero. It
I
has to
hate
be one
that.
of the
Metaphysical,
three. That's a bit
paranormal,
stronger, and a lot of
supernatural.
philosophers
Sir,
aren't sure if we can say
this is Wendy's. Speaking of, what is up? How's it going?
Hey.
My evidence. But good morning.
Darth
We're
Dawkins'
sending a
grandson,
good morning right back to you.
That's right, Titan. They are
that is
Darth's
a legitimate
grandsons.
possibility like that. I think that we can. So if you do think that, I think the modal argument has some strength to it. But a lot of people
Hey,
think
Mark.
the argument is kind of just playing around with words, and it's not as
is it?
convincing to people.
A little bit.
Might be to some people.
Playing around with something,
The
Amy.
atheist would say, or might find a problem with the wording, "Oh, God must exist," and they'll say something like, "Well, that's your proof. You don't actually have any.
Called an assertion,
You say God has
as
to,
Pat was saying.
and therefore
It's
he
a
does."
presupposition.
I mean, I hear this a lot. Well, how would you respond to that?
Right. And I would say that the argument doesn't say God must exist because God must exist. That would be a tautology
It kind of does.
statement. The point
It
is,
does it in a roundabout way.
could there be a being that must exist, that exists in every possible world? We're just starting
Once
with
again, they're conflating the word being. Notice a being, how he's using the word being here. He's saying a being. Like, oh my God, do you see that being over there? It must be an alien. But that's not the same as us being like, do you understand the nature of your being? Whoa. And those are two very different things that they switch to apparently their philosophical, theological advantage. And it's nonsense.
imagining something. Is that possible? Is it possible there is a being that exists in every possible world? Well, if it is possible, then that being must exist in a possible world. But if that being, by definition, exists in every possible world, the argument begins to fall.
Like, this is how you get Superman as my best friend, and he definitely exists arguments. Like, I don't understand how you bring this into reality.
You're right. Some atheists say, well, how do you know God must exist? Because they think that everything that we know has to be empirical. Like, okay, you can only know something.
I would like to hear really good examples. Like, they shit on science a lot. And I find this very funny since, I reiterate, it is the best methodology for finding truth. Science is not a body of knowledge. It's not all of the textbooks that we carry, because as Ricky Gervais will tell you, we could burn every science textbook today. And eventually, if conscious creatures still exist, they will discover every scientific fact again. And so it is not it's not the body of knowledge as much as we are thankful for it. It is the process.
Yeah, it's a methodology, a way of thinking and doing things.
Method of finding truth. And I don't know of any other one better.
Not perfect,
no one.
But it's the best we've ever found.
Thing about an animal if you observe it in the wild. But that's not the case. We can hypothesize a certain creature. We could say, well, is there a horse that has a horn sticking out of its head, a unicorn?
Oh, like the Bible says.
More plausible than a god. Just saying. Not out of the realms of evolution.
We could say, well, how do you know unicorns have one horn? I'm just saying, is it possible there's an animal like that? Now, with animals and creatures, we do
maybe it has 6 horns. Who knows?
They exist. Yeah. But with something like God, if we're dealing with a necessary being, something that exists in every universe, every world.
I like how that is really not an attribute. Like, it could be a llama that exists, a necessary llama that exists in every world. And to them, they're like, what? I don't understand.
The necessary dildo.
There's more, but there's more evidence for the llama. So doesn't that automatically put the llama at a higher probability? I mean, whatever.
I mean, you think you stupid atheists think you came from a rock. Well, I mean, rocks do at least exist. We know they're real. So as dumb as that is, it's still more plausible than God.
I mean, we found Grandpa. He's right here. So more evidence than God. And once again, I know that the theist, creationist, believers, whatever you want to call it, they're like, oh my God, tip your fedora on tighter. But hey, I mean, this is what we get told back to us, that we really do think that our ancestors were rocks.
Which is pretty silly.
A little silly. It's a straw man.
Yeah.
But we love our theist brothers and sisters. That's right. I'm going out there telling people that dogs came straight from mosquitoes.
Well, Leo Felius thinks that hamsters grow off of corn stalks. So
listen, it all makes sense. And if I don't see a dog come from a dinosaur, I feel like evolution really isn't true. I just want to say that flattery gets you everywhere. Just going to stand by that remark. As we look for evidence that God is real, definitely new proofs. These are like fresh, past 1,000 years fresh.
It's different to understand whether this being exists or not. So yeah, the people who say, how do you know this or that about God? I'm saying, look, I'm just saying, is this kind of being, this kind of ultimate cause, is it possible it exists? Like, what is the greatest kind of thing we can think of? And then we ask the next question, well, does it exist? And then we move from there. It's not special pleading or anything like that.
And I think this goes back to the cosmological argument you were talking about. Pleading. And I think it also delves into the argument from efficient causality, the fact that God has to exist, because if there was only nothing in the beginning, there would only be nothing now, because nothing doesn't do anything. Nothing is nothing. And if the principle is true that you can't give what you don't have, nothing cannot give existence, because it, by definition,
you don't know that
existence doesn't have existence.
Don't know that either.
That's what Trent's talking about, is the necessary being. There had to be someone out there that by definition had existence, because you can't give what you don't have. So there has to be a necessary being that is able to give existence, and he is existence by his very nature. Otherwise, if you don't have existence, you don't have anything.
Wow.
Exactly.
No, I'd be interested to know your thoughts on the moral knowledge argument and how that points to God.
Oh, where's Gavin?
I will say, you're going to have to send in Love X Music. You're going to have to I will say it was a fun panel. In fact, I was moderating during that one specifically. That one was so funny because you when it got really hyped up, you could see some people sneaking out into that debate because the volume was getting huffy and puffy, but it was actually a lot of fun. I enjoyed DebateCon. It was amazing. And in fact, have to send love to Modern Day Debate and James over there, who I can't thank more for really in having the conference, inviting us all there. I'm looking forward to doing it every year, and I thought it was a great panel. I'm really thankful. I thought it was a ended up having good interactions in the end.
That was in Dallas?
It was in Dallas, Texas. I went to Dallas, Texas. That is good. To me, that's still crazy, but I love it.
Cowboy hat?
I know exactly. I just want to send, because I thought it was, I love the debate community. I really do. I'm going to start gushing and glowing. I really do love all of you out there. I met so many fantastic people.
T-Jump, got to meet T-Jump in person.
I did. T-Jump was so cool. Honestly, all of the people I met there were really cool. Even the people that I disagree with, I think on some things were really cool. Everyone was really nice. Maybe it's harder to throw the metaphorical punches when you're not on a screen. Nonetheless, I loved it. I can't wait to do more, and I can't wait to help other people do more. Woo-hoo! Thank you so very much. But yes, he is. As you join us all, we are talking evidence that God is real, supposedly new proof for God with Trent Horn. It seems like 1,000-year-old deistic arguments, but I mean, picky, who's checking? Randolph
is checking.
Says he's trying to define nothing as having certain arbitrary characteristics, which makes it something. Exactly. The moment that you start defining it or not defining it, you are laying down attributes. And so, I don't know. It seems like a whole bunch of something that they're talking about in this nothing.
But once again, we've never seen a nothing. We don't know what a nothing is. We don't know if it can even exist.
Mm-hmm. Sent in love, Randolph.
Thanks, Randolph.
It was truly awesome time to even be on there. Sending love, Doorknob Head.
Thanks, Doorknob.
I am always cautious with politics because I'm not completely apolitical, but a more moderate centrist type of person. I really just love everybody and want compromises. And with that, we're going back to religion, which I think is totally easier. I mean, come on. Obviously, there's no God. Oh, but if you disagree, you're going to have to come on and tell us, because we love our theist brothers and sisters. In fact, the dirty little secret is we actually want you on as much as possible. We'll give you all the time in the world. Leo's like, don't ever be cautious with politics. Get out there and own the world. I will say, I do love the world. I am sending lots of good vibes out there.
Yeah, so David Baguette, Baggett, let me see if I got his name right. He put out a book recently called, it's by Baguette and Walls. Baguette and Walls, Baggett and Jerry Walls.
Badgett.
Walls is a Protestant philosopher and theologian. They have a book called The Moral Argument, A History, and it's just kind of a survey of the moral argument for the existence of God. It's a fascinating argument. It's one that a lot of philosophers don't consider to be very strong, which is the idea that there are objective moral values and duties, and only God can explain the existence of these, because they think
they don't exist. So
the best way of explaining morality as is. I'm not sure that that's the case. But even among those, I gotta say, I don't believe that's the case. I think moral arguments actually are good. But there is another species of moral argument that some philosophers are very interested in now, which says, look, even if these moral truths existed apart from God, they're just universal ideas. There's still the question, how do we know these things? Like, how do we know the Platonic value that rape is always wrong, torture is always wrong, we ought to do the good? These things exist, but they don't exist.
Don't know that.
My guess would be it doesn't come from a dude who says that up above.
For our five senses to detect. Rather, it seems to be something that we can apprehend. How are we able to do that? How do we come to know these moral truths in a purely material?
Some of us don't. come
And
to
so
know them.
the moral knowledge argument says that even if moral facts exist independently of God, I don't think they do, but even if they did,
See,
it would
and
be
that,
quite
and I agree almost the complete opposite with him. Even if I were to lean on a more objective or empirical basis of morality, I don't understand how they would come to that, because in my head, their view of objective morality is the subjective God that they place there and say, yeah, well, he's right. And do you know why he's right? Well, I
mafia boss.
actually have a lot of reasons. A really big one right here for you. It's the complaint department.
Yeah, you get right to the mafia boss argument that they can't justify it. It's just that he's God and he can kill you and do mean things to you after you're dead.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, that's where they rest on that.
All we would have is nervous laughter as we go, oh, of course, God. Of course, that's wonderful. You said it was wonderful.
Killing everybody and taking the little girls as sex slaves. Oh, that's great, God. What a great plan, God. You're so great.
No, you should totally drown everyone.
Even the little babies.
It coming.
The little infants in their crib. Absolutely, yes, God.
Absolutely.
Even the bunny rabbits. Well, except for 2 of them, but yeah, all the rest of the bunny rabbits.
I also heard an apologetic once. It's like, because I'm like, how did the fish get out of that? And there's something like how somehow he got the fish too, because he only killed the land animals. Like all of the things with gills kind of like escaped that plague or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, the fish, like the whales,
genocide,
and the dolphins.
Yes.
They're fish.
Who are the same species.
They're fish, yeah.
But whenever you say like Jonah got eaten by a giant whale, they're always like, hey, it's not a whale, it's a giant fish. It's like, okay, that makes it much more empirical. Thank you.
like the puzzle to explain
according
how
to Ken Hovind, whales are fish and under God's classification. Just because humans want to come and say, okay, they're actually mammals. No. According to God, if it lives in the water, it's a fucking fish.
There you go. Exactly. Doesn't matter if factually
has lungs, breathes air,
more of a spinal,
feeds milk to its young.
Yes, exactly.
Doesn't matter.
A fish's spinal cord goes like this. A whale's spinal cord and a dolphin, which is a whale, goes like that. But hey, who's paying attention? Definitely not Ken Hovind. Yeah, definitely not God. Definitely not Ken Hovind.
To know these facts, these truths that exist in an immaterial way, but also command us to do certain things. Now, some critics will say, well, look, we come to know these truths through evolution. We evolve certain behaviors that are helpful to our species. And through this evolutionary process, we know morality. To which the defenders of the moral knowledge argument will say, well, wait a minute, this is a mighty coincidence here. You're saying that we just happened to evolve the moral traits that perfectly correspond to these platonic moral values that exist out there in the universe?
No.
Because we easily, through a biological accident, have evolved as a species so that rape was actually a benefit. And it was something we evolved as a community to tolerate or even promote, or all other sorts of negative behaviors. We just happen to evolve.
Once again, I'm fairly sure from an evolutionary standpoint, when you are able to abuse someone's anatomy, you can possibly be able to pass on your sperm, your progeny. Nonetheless, we understand as conscious, sentient, introspective creatures how much harm that does to another human being and scarring. And it would be very hard for me to imagine a moral system in which those types of horrific atrocities that we fight against would be moral.
I know of one. I know of one. The Bible, where 11 or 12-year-old girls could be married off and their husbands have full sexual rights to them. It doesn't matter if they want to or not. It doesn't matter if they're even physically capable of doing that or not without causing intense pain. Doesn't matter. Spousal rape is not a thing in the Bible. That is a man's right.
It's all right. It's the good book.
Yeah, yeah. And if somebody rapes your daughter, it's cool as long as he marries her.
It's true. But James, come on. Her value went down. Come on.
Right. He's not really going to be able to get much for her anyway at that point because she's damaged goods.
Once again, though, this is objective morality, so...
Right.
Yeah.
Morality is like a constantly evolving thing. We're always constantly getting better and tinkering with it and coming up with new ideas and values and trying to get better on, but it's not a top-down thing imposed by a god.
Trickle-down morality.
Yeah.
Though, I will say, we're about 2/3 done of the opposing view of evidence that God is real. We will go on for a little while before we start to open up the floodgates and get people ready to join the open mic. So if you have been listening and have enjoyed all of the wisdom soaking in from this new proof for God with Trent Horn, very new, like super fresh, then you'll be able to join us.
The behaviors that perfectly correspond to these pre-existing moral values, it just seems like quite a stretch. So that's called the moral knowledge argument. I think it's one definitely worth exploring.
Jesus, my yoga teacher helps me
general
stretch.
Moral arguments for the existence of God.
Yeah, because to me it sounds like, to me it sounds subjective. If we evolved morally, it's still subjective. Who decides?
It is subjective.
It's not. It depends on the people. It depends on the time.
Exactly.
It
Just depend on God.
People in Germany at one point thought murdering a whole entire religion was okay and acceptable. Other people would say, no, that's an abomination.
Yeah, they thought the same thing in the Bible.
Say it's okay,
they were just reading the Bible literally.
Say, no, that's wrong. So really it comes down to subjectivism depending on people. Even if it evolved. And it seems to me that morality is deeper than that. Right is right and wrong is wrong because it's right.
No,
it's wrong.
No.
He is making a complete tautology, though. Like, I want you just to hear that. Like, one more time.
To do this or that. Other people say, no, that's wrong. So really it comes down to subjectivism depending on people. Even if it evolved. And it seems to me that morality is deeper than that. Right is right and wrong is wrong because it's right and because it's wrong. And that is more of an objective principle, which needs an objective source.
Right is right because it's right. Wrong is wrong because it's wrong. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. We can pack up.
If you went back 200 years in the past and you started asking people if slavery was inherently wrong, I'm guessing like 90% would say no, it's just a thing. It's always been a thing. It will always be a thing. It is what it is. That didn't last. Most people would say the opposite now.
And I would say it was immoral even back then. And the fact that the Bible could not predict that is, along with the Quran, the Torah, whatever you want to say, none of those books could predict that slavery was bad. So that is evidence, in my opinion, in the direction that God is not real. But
he's not.
About right?
Yeah, I think that's a good.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Okay. I believe one argument we were talking about earlier is the cosmological argument, or that of the fine-tuning of the universe. Yes. What would you say about that? How does fine-tuning, first of all, what does that mean for our audience, and how does that point to God?
Well, fine-tuning is different from the fine-tuning argument. It's a part of it. Fine-tuning just says that out of all of the possible configurations of the constants and conditions in the universe, constants being things like the strong nuclear force, the strength of gravity in a vacuum. These things could have had very different values. And
let's just appreciate for a second that he believes in gravity. All right, moving forward.
the vast majority, a mind-boggling number of the configurations would be prohibitive towards life. The odds of getting a universe where life could even exist and evolve at all are worse than, let's say, winning 10 poker games.
Because Amy,
one in one,
Because-
100%. What were you saying?
I was saying because if we couldn't be here, we wouldn't be here, right?
Exactly. Such a silly argument.
If we couldn't exist, then we wouldn't exist.
If the laws of nature were different, we wouldn't be here. Yeah, maybe something else would. Are we that special? I don't get this. But the laws of nature aren't different.
And we don't know exactly why the laws of nature are the way they are. We don't know why gravity is so much weaker than the other forces. We're speculating, we're doing experiments, we're trying to figure that out, but we don't have all the answers yet.
Yep, but still looking.
We're still looking, but to just run in at the end and say, no, forget about all that work. The values are what they are because God just poofed and said, you know what, I'm going to make gravity this strong. I'm going to make electromagnetism this strong. And I'm going to make the nuclear force this strong.
It's a fear. It's just basically, well, we wouldn't be here. What would happen? You just said it. We wouldn't be here. Like the universe would give up that we weren't here. I love that. I mean, I think we're amazing. I love humanity. I love all of the other animals as well as mushrooms and plants and bacteria, viruses.
I mean, a rogue black hole could come into our solar system at any moment and just start devouring matter. We'd be dead in the blink of an eye, and the universe would still go on.
Still go on, like a love song.
Games in a row, all with royal flushes. So the fact that life exists against such improbable odds, in other cases when valuable things come about against
also just have to bring this up. This looks like a great planet to have life. It just does. We are in the circumstellar habitable zone around the Earth,
right,
which, you know, basically the place that isn't burning or freezing so that we can have liquid water. Water is a weird chemical to begin with. The fact that it freezes from the top down allowed life to exist in oceans when in other chemicals it would have all died. And then carbon, as John Stewart once said, is the slut of the periodic table and just makes more chemical reactions with any other element on Earth. And so you put all of these things together, it's not that surprising that life formed here.
We have a abnormally large moon that's tidally locked that creates regular tides.
But we don't body shame.
And it also, I think, provides protection from asteroid impacts and such. We have a large planet in the outer solar system called Jupiter that sucks up a lot of asteroids and comets that otherwise might threaten the Earth. There's a lot of factors in play as to why life is here. Our atmosphere, we have oxygen, which is a metabolic catalyst. And
that is a very interesting one, the oxygen itself, because we live in an oxidized world now. But there are many reasons for why life exists here, and it's not random. It is not random chance. They have a whole bunch of buzzwords. Nothing is one of them. Chance, random chance. No atheist ever uses these, but definitely
nothing is truly random, I don't think.
I mean, what happens, in my opinion, is that in the nitty gritty, it gets too hard
to calculate.
Calculate. You could probably say there are some true. You could create probably random number generators instead, but generally speaking, there is nothing that if you were to look at every event, it'd probably be very deterministic. But we are almost there. I think 2 more minutes.
Almost
and
there.
I'm going to send the link into chat so people can get ready to join us as we've been looking at evidence that God is real. This is clearly new. So if you're a
Very
young
new.
1,000, 2,000-year-old, I feel like this has been the podcast for you.
Odds, like winning the poker suit 10 poker games, we see
But
design.
the thing is with that is if
And I
you
believe
played poker long enough, if you played for 1,000,000 years, you probably eventually get to a point in that time where you would hit 10 royal flushes in a row. The odds are incredibly small, but if you do it long enough, you will. And, you know, in terms of like when life arose on Earth, in terms of time scales on the cosmic level, it happened almost right away. As soon as it could happen, it happened. In our time scale, that could be a couple million years, but to a 14 billion-year-old universe, that's the blink of an eye.
Exactly.
To see design in the universe as well. It's either chance that's ruled out. It could be necessity.
They love that.
But there's no reason to think the constants must be the values they are at. We know they can be different because the constants are different.
Sure.
The strength of one constant is not the same as another.
Maybe. Yeah,
why are they the way that they are? It seems like there's better evidence for that this is indicative of some kind of design for the universe.
Oh, there's a dude behind the curtain
There's some kind of design
making it all happen.
Now, coupled with other arguments for God, provides a strong cumulative case for the existence of God.
Basically, it comes down to the fact that we didn't come about by nothing, from nothing, because of nothing, and for no reason
Wow. No, say it one more time.
whatsoever. It wasn't a big cosmic accident, or for
Maybe it was. Who knows?
Like, just the amount of buzzwords. I'm sorry for them basically accusing us of having narratives and all this stuff, and we push evolution and Big Bang cosmology. I mean, lordy, nothing chance. Did you think it was a random nothing by chance? No, atheists
From
don't believe
nothing
that.
to nothing.
Physicists don't believe that.
Are trillions and trillions of virtually impossible cosmic accidents that actually had to be designed, and that's a much more likely and logical explanation, right?
You think everything came from an accident? There's another word they love.
Right, precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely.
I find that, there's a lot of good proof for God. One of my favorite is the argument from efficient causality. And I actually like the argument from contingency as well. But, there's good arguments out there that are very logically based.
They just need to find them.
I find that many people, no matter what the evidence is, no matter how solid it is, I mean, some people...
How solid is it, Amy?
Also, as well, but
for someone who started out correctly using the definition of proof and giving a mathematical example, they're not giving evidence. Okay, this is not evidences. These are arguments. These are philosophical arguments.
Assertions.
Sometimes in syllogisms, oftentimes just assertions pulled from their... but yes, they have not been giving evidence. Definitely not good evidence.
But there are some people who aren't ever going to believe, maybe because they don't want to.
And
I tend to find, maybe it's my own labeling. I label them emotional atheists. There's some people who don't want to believe, even if there is evidence. They're always going to...
Did we lose Amy? I think we lost Amy. I'm sure she'll be right back, guys. Unless you guys lost me. Computer blue screen, so she'll be right back. These things happen, but what a video, guys. What what a bunch of rehashing of arguments from the past. They've never really been convincing. They've never really been effective, and but it's all they have. It's all they really have. So what else are we going to wait around to be presented with? I think if you've watched one debate on religion, you've watched 10 debates, you kind of see the same arguments come up all the time. Very rarely do you come up with a legitimately new argument, something that nobody's made before. And yeah. The greatest hits. We'll let Amy's more the dancing, singing, twirling type. We'll leave that to her. So we've got a couple shows coming up. We've got a couple shows on modern day debate after shows that we're going to. One is on Friday. Is Jesus real? I think we're going to try to get Oz from Tart on, because that's kind of his thing, and it will be a good debate on modern day debate with Richard Carrier, who I love. And then we've got on Saturday a debate on should ex-Muslims be punished or executed, which is apparently some people think that that's a good thing. I don't know how you can make a case for that, but I guess we're going to see that on Saturday. That will be a definitely an interesting show. You have to execute people who disagree with you. That kind of says something about your position. What do you think? Yeah, yay, Carrier. He's great. I think 100 years from now, Dr. Carrier will be looked at as kind of the trailblazer in the mythicist. Jesus is a myth. Yeah, I know, Leo. I know you don't subscribe to mythicism, but it's okay. We'll get you there, Leo. 150 years ago, everybody would have said the same thing about Moses. They would have said, okay, all right, you can take the magic out of the Exodus, but there had to be a guy named Moses that the stories were about. Maybe the magic, it wasn't real, but it had to at least be based on somebody. And now you would struggle to find anybody, any reputable scholar who thinks that Moses actually existed. And I think that'll be how it looks 100 years from now, when people, aren't so religious, and they won't have this emotional need to defend the existence of Jesus. We'll try, Leo. We'll try to convert you, but maybe we'll do a little bit better than Ken Hovind on that. Yeah, Amy, her computer keeps blue screening, but she's working on it. Well, I agree with that, Mark. It really doesn't matter if he existed or he was a myth, because even if he existed, it doesn't prove the theological, it doesn't prove the claims or that the religion is right. It's just, if he didn't exist, then you can automatically close all that out. You can automatically dismiss it all. You don't even have to get to step one if he didn't exist. Yeah, the blue screen. Obviously, it's God trying to shut our podcast down, but it happens. It happens. Yeah, while Amy was in Dallas, Fort Worth had that terrorist takeover of the synagogue. That was happening right in the city next to where she was. Kind of surreal if you think about it. Something like that could happen in the modern era, but hey, religion. Blue screen of death above all. It is. It controls our destiny. It controls our life. God smote her CPU. So I've got a debate in the coming up in the works, probably going to be in early March. I'm not announcing it, but it should be because it hasn't been totally confirmed yet, but it should be a really, really good show. I'm really excited about it. I've got to do some preparation because let's just say I need to drink a lot of water before that debate. It's going to be on evolution, Leo. Yeah, it's going to be on evolution. So, yeah, Leo, yeah. It's going to be epic. I'm excited about it. So, let's see if Amy... You're back.
I'm back. What is up? Oh my, that was fun. My computer
I was just getting ready to, yeah, Windows repair worked.
I guess so, but I think it is time. This can't happen again. I am getting a new processor and motherboard because this is silly. I can't have this, but we are going to finish out the last 5 minutes of the video, and I'm going to send the link into chat. I feel like, did it ever even get into chat? I was literally posting it in
I don't think so.
I think it did. Of course.
I was just getting ready to post it because I was dying. I was dying out there, Amy.
Hey, I completely understand.
I thought I disconnected. I didn't realize it was you.
And with that, I am going to play this, but I'm going to send the link into chat as we finish up on evidence that God is real, new proof for God with Trent Horn. And it's been so new, like I said, a millennia or two, but wipe it off, put it in the microwave, it'll be fine.
While you were gone, I announced that I have a debate coming up in March, not announcing the opponent yet, but let's just say, as I said, I need to have lots of water ready for that debate.
That's right, a good glass of water. In fact, you might even come up against a 15-foot whales. And with that, we're going to start the video and send the link in the stream.
Thanks, Mark.
And that many people, no matter what the evidence is, no matter how solid it is, I mean, some people may bring
how
up
solid is it, Amy?
There are some people who aren't ever going to believe,
solid.
Maybe because they don't want to. And I tend to find
I hate that argument that we don't believe just because we don't want to.
There's some people who don't want to believe, even if there is evidence. They're always
some people just want to believe, even though there's no evidence.
Always going to be a problem of why they personally don't believe. And I remember a debate with Richard Dawkins, who's one of the most famous atheists, and someone asked him, what would you need God to do to believe? What would you want God to do? And I don't remember where I heard this or what debate it was, but he said something to the effect that, well, maybe if I saw like a 200 or 600 foot Jesus walking toward me and said, "Hey, I'm Jesus, believe in me." Mr. Dawkins said, "Okay, I would believe." But then, the theist, the Christian said, "Would you really? Or would you more likely say my mind is playing tricks on me?" Right. Because in his book, The God Delusion, he was saying that, if a statue waves its arm and actually waves at you, he was saying, oh, that could just be chance. That's not miraculous, and or my mind is playing tricks on me. But my point is that
it could be, because we do know that does happen.
Right.
Where
people see things that aren't there. People hear things that aren't there.
It does. The catechism
also
says,
in the natural world. I mean, it'd be really odd to see a 200-foot tall Jesus. Nonetheless, I mean,
probably have to ask what you were smoking.
Exactly. But once again, outside the natural world, no.
the arguments to the existence of God can predispose us to faith, but faith itself is a supernatural gift we have to be open and receptive towards.
Yeah.
Receptive.
And what would you give?
Faith is a good way to be wrong.
What, I guess, advice would you give to our audience, those listening today, but how you can deal with people who are skeptics, who are atheists, who are just agnostic? I mean, people have good questions. They do. And we, as a church, I don't think, have not given good answers over the last 40 years or so. The good answers are there. We just haven't done a good job of communicating.
Well,
so
you can't tie people who don't believe to a burning stake anymore and roast them in front of people. So
it's going to take time. We should ask them questions about what they believe, why they think that, help them to see some of their assumptions maybe unfounded, and then be patient with them. And when they have questions and concerns, go out and find those answers that are there, and not treat it like a one-time debate, but a journey where we're accompanying them towards the truth.
Journey.
I think that's important, because I know in my own dialogues, I've done countless atheists I've talked to, agnostics, skeptics, and many people have said to me, if I knew this, I probably would have never left Christianity. If I had known these things, that makes a lot of sense.
Really?
A long time ago. So I think a lot of people do want to believe, and they need good, clear, logical reasons to believe. And I think that's a burden on us to learn our faith, to study our faith. And again, I want to point to your book for all of our listeners out there. It's called Answering Atheism, and it really does talk about the different arguments for the existence of God in a lot of deep detail. But it also talks about how to reach people, questions they might ask, responses they might ask. And I believe, if I remember when I read this, that you have you do. You have mock question and discussions, dialogues, which is good. And I have to plug my own book real quick, just in case anyone might be interested. But it's called "Why Do You Believe in God?" and it's 15 real conversations that I've had with atheists and skeptics, so you get to hear both sides, how to respond, and that sort of thing. If anyone's interested in that too. But before we go,
Brondo's got electrolytes
on the existence of God, or just anything.
Why does Brondo have electrolytes?
Advice for people?
My advice would just be that knowing God exists is not the same thing as being in a relationship with God. We always have to build up
I have always found that concept fascinating. Just being in a relationship with a God, like you're holding hands, going down the beach. And if it was that empirically true, we would have evidence. Then we'd all believe it.
A relationship with God and prayer. And we have atheist friends and family members, just to not treat them with scorn or sarcasm, but to be gentle with them, to ask questions, and just accompany them and be a good witness.
Be gentle with me. It's my first theological time.
To the faith in word and deed.
And I will, again, put your links to your podcast down below, to your books down below. I believe that Trent has a full debate with an atheist, at least one. And I will find that, and I will put that down below as well, if anyone's interested in hearing both sides and seeing the logic and clarity.
Come on down, Trent.
But I want to thank you, Trent, for coming on our show today. I want to thank you for talking.
I want to thank both of these gentlemen for being our opposing view, because we are actually about to move into the open mic portion of the show on evidence that God is real, new proof for God, with Trent Horn. And my wordy, have we been hearing some wisdom.
Oh boy.
James, what do you think? The same old arguments we've been hearing basically day in, day out?
Yeah. I've never heard people use logical paradoxes as a reason to believe in God before. That was the only thing new.
Yeah, that is a little bit interesting. Trying to understand infinities, therefore, God. Okay.
And it's funny because there are different kinds of infinities. Like there are bigger infinities and smaller infinities. Like there's an infinite number of
James,
prime numbers, but there's also an infinite number of non-prime numbers. But the non-prime numbers are a bigger infinity.
it's not the size of your infinity that counts. Okay? It's how you use it.
There you go.
But
Only
yes,
somebody with a little infinity said that, by the way.
I know, but you never really get there with these guys. Or infinities, apparently.
They're kind of a little overpriced. I would never pay that much for a car, but for what you get.
Though I will say I have paid for an infinity. Anyway, tip your waitress, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to move into the open mic. We have been listening to evidence that God is real. We got Randolph Richardson and Mark Reed behind, I was going to say,
Door
behind
number
bars. Door number one. Dun, 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 dun. Trying to make it mysterious. But we really want believers, creationists, people that think the earth is 6,000 years old. Wouldn't it be interesting to find atheists who thought that? It'd be horrifying in its own way. But look, we really just want people who are going to tell us why, because it's easy to tell us what you believe, but why you believe as we move into our Skeptic and Ranting open mic.
Like, I could tell you exactly why I'd be converted. I could tell you why I stopped believing, but
and I don't feel like I'm convinced. But hey, maybe Randolph will. As the godfather of atheism, Randolph Richardson, you are starting us off on our Skeptic and Ranting open mic. What is up, Randolph?
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you? And we are talking evidence that God is real. What are your thoughts about the video or the subject itself?
Well, the topic I have some ideas on, but I wanted to talk briefly about some of the things that came up in the video with you. And
absolutely,
one of the things they mentioned, there's two things I'll go over right now real quick. One was they mentioned people struggling with atheism as if that's something that people struggle with.
Yeah.
Are you struggling with atheism, Randolph?
No. I don't know atheists who struggle with atheism. There's, unless you're talking about definitions, there's a few atheists who struggle with that, but their main struggle is that they have to keep trying to justify it and they can't, and that's why they keep trying to justify it. So the mainstream keep correcting them, and they'll eventually get along with everybody else. But yeah, they'll eventually embrace reality and we'll be okay. It's the theists who seem to struggle with it because they're assuming incorrectly that we carry some sort of burden connected to some kind of position that their God doesn't exist. And while that's true of some atheists, most atheists just don't hold that kind of belief at all. It just doesn't even factor into a regular part of our lives. So why should we carry a burden for a claim that we don't make? And that's the struggle for them. And the reason it's a struggle mostly for theists who take that approach is that they have this kind of dichotomous view of this arena, and they think that if you're not with God, you're against him, which I believe comes from the book of John in the Bible. And they fail to appreciate or even allow for the nuance of somebody who doesn't take a position. And that's actually their problem. It's not ours, but we're happy to help them with it if they are struggling with it and not getting anywhere. with their church sources, which I suspect is why it continues to be a struggle for them. So that's what I think is going on there. The other thing that the guy mentioned was that atheists think that everything came from nothing. And it's funny how they'll take a philosophical concept like that, or perhaps even make it a scientific claim and apply it to atheists, as if all atheists believe the same thing. See, they come from a mindset of, which is common in religions, everybody must be informed. Everything okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Must be the cat. So
Yeah.
they expect that everybody's conforming, everybody in their group, they're used to this, right? And so they apply this same expectation to all other groups, including atheists, which is not necessarily the case. And they, in the case of atheism, which is just a classification of people who don't believe in any goddesses or gods, there's nothing in atheism that says, therefore, that we need to conform to anything. There's nothing in atheism that says that there's a minimum amount of time that we need to not believe in order to qualify as an atheist. No such qualification exists. And there's nothing in atheism that says you can't join a religion that you can't start believing. Everyone's free to do this. That's the intrinsic aspect of characteristic of atheism, and that bothers them. But they start making these weird claims, like saying that there's, and it's weird, they contradict themselves, because if they say nothing, which I sometimes refer to as absolutely nothing, and this is what they're talking about, they'll make some key mistakes, and they'll say, okay, well, there are certain rules that apply to nothing. Well, then it's not absolutely nothing anymore. As soon as you have any kind of rule or law of nature or something like that, or any kind of matter in it, then you can't really say it's nothing anymore. It becomes something. And thank you for highlighting my comment on that earlier, Amy. So they contradict themselves. So
Absolutely.
If they were to make a rule, one of the common rules they make is that nothing can't do anything. Well, now they've defined it. They've applied a rule onto it. And if you really think of it deeply, absolutely nothing, what is there to say that it would be stable? Because that's in essence what they're saying, is that it's stable. How do they know that absolutely nothing might not be unstable and that something could erupt from it? Because if they put that rule on there, then it can't be. Or if somebody else was to put a rule on there that something must come from it because it's inherently stable, then it's not really, it can't really qualify as absolutely nothing anymore, can it? So anyway, that's my thought on it. I could be completely wrong about it, because I have to say, as far as I know, I've not encountered absolutely nothing in my life. So,
not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Long
Thanks,
way away, I hope. Thank you, and
Well,
cheers.
thank you so very much, Randolph. And yeah, I haven't, like I said, we often don't find a lot of nothing unless it's our bank account.
Yeah, the banks seem to be pretty good at making that happen. Maybe we should consult with them to find out more about the philosophical point.
That sounds good, and thank you so very much. And all right, Randolph, we're going to add in Mark and then go into the open conversation.
Hello, Mark.
But Theus,
Hey, Mark.
I will say, we are looking for you. We're saying hi. We'll give you as much time, relatively speaking, of course,
You won't bite.
as you want. We will not bite unless, you're kind of into that thing. But Mark Reed, I hope you are doing well. We are skeptic and ranting on evidence that God is real. I hope you're doing well. And what are your thoughts about the video or anything we've been talking about tonight?
Oh, I am struggling. I am struggling with this heat in summer. Not necessarily being an atheist, but yeah. No, good pickup, Randolph. I didn't notice that one. Like, struggle to be an. I've never had to struggle to not believe something. I've never had to try and convince myself and have doubts and then try and overcome them like the theists seem to, or a lot of them do. I had doubts and then I went to church and talked to a priest and had to overcome. It's not a lot of, as far as I know, not a lot of atheists go through that. Like, oh, I've got to convince myself that there's the natural world exists and there isn't a supernatural. You know, it's just not something that we go through, as far as I know. I could be wrong. So I've got a ton of stuff here. If you'll indulge me, you know, feel free to shut me up at any time. But
Not
what
at
was
all.
new? I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, saying not at all. Go ahead.
Keep going.
All right. Right. So what you said was absolutely true. Like, what is new about this? Is clickbait for Christians. It absolutely is.
Right.
New arguments. There's nothing new about these arguments. There's nothing new at all. It was a plug for a book because he held it up at the end. It was Trent Horn's book, which was like answering atheism. It was an infomercial of the old, same, tired things we've heard a million times and have, you know, really good refutations for. The whole necessary being is what he started off with, and like, why is it a being?
Right off the bat.
Yeah, right off the bat, necessary being. And he's like, oh, he makes sure, oh, that sounds like it's not a circular argument. Oh, it is. Oh, it so is. Like you're saying, the necessary being exists. Why do we know exists? Oh, because he's necessary. Yeah, and why is it a being? Why isn't a necessary agent or a necessary object or a necessary event? Why does it have to be a being?
Necessary unicorn.
Right. And then they start to put certain sort of, you know, attributes on. They say, oh, I'm just saying that this being is possibly because it's necessary. And then they start to put all these extra things on it that they've got no evidence for. Oh, it must be a mind. It must be this. It must be that. But I don't ever explain why it must be all of these things they put on it. I mean, I would argue that reality is necessary. It's a necessary precondition for anything. Like, for something to exist in the first place, there has to something exist. But, you know, that's a tautology, of course. That's a prerequisite. Existence is necessary for existence. Well, yeah, that's just a tautology. Yeah. And the whole thing, I'm a conflicted mind about possible worlds, because they say, oh, in a possible world, and sort of point to the idea that, you know, if you could make another choice, or something different could possibly happen, there is another possible world that exists in a loose sort of alternative reality kind of sense. But the problem is, if you're a subscriber to determinism, which I'm kind of not, but that's another story. There is no other possible world. Things have happened the way they're going to happen, and it will have always happened like that, because that's the only reality that exists. And there's a lot of pushback against sort of, you know, possible worlds. And then they went on to the moral argument, where they, for some bizarre reason, went on to Platonic ideals for some weird reason. And the reason why I say it's weird is because they're like, oh, these idealized Platonics must exist. They must be true. And it's like, well, why? Like, why not, instead of idealized forms, our morality and our sense of morality comes from utilitarian values, i.e. what works in social societies as we've evolved in those societies. They don't explain that. And what's, I mean, they say it's a mighty coincidence. Well, no, if it's utilitarian, if what works, then whatever remains will have been using the stuff that works. And what's weird about these Platonic ideals is they're not shared by the God. Like, you had God command Moses, who came down to the mountain and see everybody worshipping a golden bull, to kill everybody, which is immoral. So if you do have Platonic ideals of, you know, these do not kill and these moral standards, then why doesn't the God follow the Platonic ideals? He seems to not care about them, which is so strange, because if you have ideals, what kind of a God doesn't meet up to the ideals? It's all very, very weird. I mean, we would love to have a hard and fast morals, like things just to be inherently right and inherently wrong, and easy to understand, and everybody knows them, and everybody follows exactly the same moral systems, it would probably be an end to war. It would probably be an end to all kinds of, horrible things happening. It would be awesome. It just doesn't seem to exist, and that sucks. But that's reality. That's the way it is. And he's sort of like, oh, but that would mean subjectivism or moral relativism, I think is what he was alluding to. And yeah, that's our point. There doesn't seem to be any moral reality, some moral realism. It doesn't seem to be there. I don't know. And then the fine-tuning argument, which is just ridiculous. So to the fine-tuning, I'll say, show me a universe that is completely hostile to life, and I'll believe you that there's been some kind of fine-tuning. But we've only got one universe, and you can't say, hey, well, another universe, if things were different, life wouldn't have occurred. You can't possibly know that. Life, if the variables were different in another universe, life may have flourished more. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, but we just don't know. And the question arises, how do you know? How do you know this is the case? Because you don't have another universe to study. So where is this coming from? And I love it's like, what is the reason why all the constants are what they are? We don't know.
Yeah.
That is just classic God of the gaps. It's just a God of the gap. We don't know why the constants of the universe are the way they are, therefore God. That is the argument that he's making. It is one of the worst arguments. That's why they sort of start to use atheism of the gaps and try to push it. No, this is God of the gaps, and I know they hate it. That's what it is. Nobody knows why the constants are the way they are. I'd love to, but just saying, hey, what must have been God?
But what could be different?
What if it was advanced multi-dimensional aliens that created the universe? They're so advanced they can do that. It's another option. It's not a dichotomy of it has to be natural or it has to be God. That doesn't exist. That's a false dichotomy. I just this was absolutely the worst arguments just played on repeat. I'm not impressed. I'm really not impressed. But Trent Horn got a plug for his book, so
it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out. It worked out.
Well, thank you so very much, Mark.
Thank you so much for letting me rant. I haven't had a rant since you went away to the convention. I'm so jealous that you got to go, and I hope you had the best time. I did catch a couple of your hosted debates and the panel, so it was fantastic. Thank you, Amy.
And I was gonna say, what are your thoughts? Were you a fan of DebateCon?
Yeah, I was, although most of them were like when I was sleeping, so I couldn't see them live. It just basically tortured me because it kept sending Patreon stuff through at scheduled for 3 a.m. or something. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
It's like you're tucking yourself in, and it's like new content coming soon, right now. You're
much.
Like, what?
Yeah, I did see some of them though, and I enjoyed them. I thought that they did some really good topics. I really liked your panel, although hate down the end was a nightmare. It was good. It was really good. I think there was some really solid points in there. I think T-Jump did amazing on that panel, actually. Surprisingly enough, he was pretty good. So,
surprising.
I was gonna say it was a great panel. And had some good back and forth, and I think everyone walked away. I think even James on there came away walking away feeling better. But who knows what is going on in everybody's head? But I thought it was a fantastic panel. I'm glad you liked it, and I can't wait to do it again in 2023. Woo-hoo. And all right, the link is going to stay pinned in chat We will still give everyone an opener and closer if they want it, but we are going to be moving into open dialogue on evidence that God is real. I don't know, guys. I don't think we've been converted. We're not deists, no?
No, not heading into mass.
No, I at one point was kind of like a semi-pantheist in my life, sort of, God's the universe kind of thing. But that was lasted a couple of months. But I remember struggling through that to sort of convince myself, hey, there's got to be something out there because coincidences and because this and that, and I loved what you said, Randolph. It's like that struggle for them isn't the same as our struggles are kind of like religious people making rules that tell us how to fuck, basically, like stuff like that, and what to do with our bodies and what we can and can't do. That's our struggle. And it was funny that he mentioned at the end that it was like it came down to, what did he say? He said it came down to clear, logical reasons, and none of those things those arguments he mentioned from really come down to clear, logical reasons.
Especially when he contradicted himself about the nothing stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
It really comes down to feelings and personal revelation, and then you sort of put that back into some reasoning and yeah. I mean, some of the arguments do have merit, but I don't think they're that convincing.
Yeah. Well, it's recycled old arguments, as James was pointing out earlier quite a few times while watching it. Correctly pointing that out, because we've heard these arguments before. I guess one other thing that religion could have come up that is kind of new would be the Kalam cosmological argument. Christianity got that from Muslims, as I understand it. It was Muslims that came up with that, but I'm not sure. It's a kind of a newer argument.
I believe so, yeah.
These times, this has been around for a while still.
Yeah, but as tons of people have pointed out, the original Kalam doesn't have God in any of the premises or the conclusion. It's more the building up of it. The William Lane Craig's, has to be a mind, has to be timeless, spaceless, non-consistent kind of thing.
The biggest problem I see with the Kalam is that the premise begins with a limited scope. It talks only about things that begin to exist.
And then it makes a special pleading by saying that doesn't apply to their God because he doesn't begin to exist.
Yeah. And so that doesn't talk about all things. It only talks about all things that begin to exist. So there's a condition there right in the first premise. So it's not fully comprehensive. It's only partly specific.
Well, I mean, yes. My problem with that is
It's a weird one. Yeah. Go ahead.
It's very specific, sort of everything that begins to exist has to have a cause. And I guess my problem with it is that nothing really begins to exist in a scientific sense. Everything just transforms, like everything is sort of, energy to matter, back to energy, and it's more things change state rather than begin to exist in a philosophical sense. There's nothing that sort of comes into existence in the material world, at least, without it being transformed from something else. So when they say it begins to exist, it's a very nebulous and unformed term. Like I kind of compare it to the ship of Theseus. Are you aware of that one? Like if you replace every board in the ship, like when is it still the same ship?
Yeah.
And when does a ship become a ship? Is it when you lay down the sort of, first struts of the ship? Is it when you put the planks on? Is it when it floats? If you leave harbour and you forget the anchor, is that not a ship until you go back and get it?
Which is why a lot of people seem to have a disdain for philosophy, is because of these specific things. It drives people nuts. And it's part of the reason why I think philosophy needs comedy, needs more comedy.
I won't argue
What I'm
with
here
that.
for.
Definitely needs
He's here
more.
all night.
Uh-huh. Maybe you should become a comedic philosopher.
Oh, I'm going to leave that to Amy, because she's the comedy expert here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for that. Yeah, Amy, the comedic philosopher.
Yeah.
But the theologians do it so well.
So capitalize on it. They like capitalism. Why not? Make them proud. And make a joke about your bootstraps when you do that.
I'm okay with wherever direction that's going.
The other
They
problem,
often say, people need to pull up their bootstraps and get a job. That's what that's in reference
Okay.
to.
Less kinkier than I thought, but I'll take it.
the other problem I have with the Kalam is because it talks about the universe beginning to exist, and we don't know that the universe began to exist because we can only go back to Planck time before the supposed origin. So we don't really know whether, and plus, since space-time eventuated with the origin of the universe, saying began at the start is a really weird way of describing it. It may not have any relevance, it may not, but nobody knows because we can't see the origin.
There's a reason they set it up like that. They basically, it's like a magic trick where you say this is clearly a normal deck of cards because it's not a normal deck of cards. They are saying, well, everything begins to exist, right? Well, have you seen this thing that has always existed? It's right over here. Well, hey, I thought you just said everything has to begin to exist. Well, I did, except for this thing, this very special thing.
Amy, you have got to get some custom cards made up with pictures of big bangs and planets and galaxies on it, and do this as if you're doing a magic trick and do a whole presentation. You'd be brilliant at it.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, you got to do that. I can just see you flipping the cards and pulling out the right ones each time.
I need to find them, but I have the literal, like yourfallacyis.com thing where you can pull up your fallacy. I have the actual cards, so I've been wanting to actually use them when someone brings up a fallacy. But I will say I can't with all of these silly non-believers and skeptics here. So theists, creationists, people who think that the earth is anything but a sphere, please come on down and talk to us because we definitely want to have a conversation.
Now, before I talk about the Big Bang a little bit, there's the
show.
I just wanted to say you did phenomenally well as a host and I guess moderator or what you were doing for Modern Day Nexus, and it was so cool to see in-person debates happening because most of the debates have all been online and it's been a while. It reminded me of when Christopher Hitchens was on stage with people debating, and seeing this again was such a nice thing to see, and it was great to see a familiar face in there, you looking after things and running the show. It was fantastic. You did fantastically well. You're very well.
Thank you so very much. And it was a whole lot of fun. I'm just glad I got to be there at DebateCon. And I was going to say a blessing, but you got to watch language because then the religious people go, it was an honor to meet all of the different interlocutors. And so I'm glad I got to go down there, and I am also glad it got blasted online because if you can't make it to Dallas, Texas, ladies and gentlemen, you can head over to Modern Day Debate.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the debates online, I was watching it online, there were over 2,500 people watching. It got really big. I believe it was can't remember. I think it might have been the David Wood versus Kenny.
Oh, David Wood always brings in a big audience.
Yeah, there was a lot of people watching. It was really good.
He brings in a lot of Christians, though. but
Yep.
it's a big audience nonetheless.
All
Yeah,
the religious debates were good debates.
yeah.
Maybe I'm biased because I kind of like my religious debates, but
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought they were good. Yeah, they were well done. I haven't seen them all. The one that I watched was I started late. The one with Tom Jump and the Muslim fellow, and I forgot his name, but I thought that one was really interesting to see. I thought Tom Jump did very, very well. He was brilliant, and he was sharp. I hope
He's a
to
good
learn.
debater.
I hope he'll teach me some stuff because I'd love to learn from him. He's really
would
good.
you say, however, that he is a master? And with that, we got about 15
So-
more minutes, maybe 20.
I'll just
So we are looking, once again, theist, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, deist, evidence that God is real, new proof for God, apparently with Trent Horn because he hawked his book. But Randolph, you were about to say something?
Yeah, so for the Big Bang, my understanding is that, and this is why I think that a lot of the religious people are using outdated arguments when they raise the Big Bang, is because my understanding is that Penrose and Hawking updated the papers about the Big Bang to accommodate quantum physics, and state that there were probably multiple Big Bangs, some happening simultaneously at the inception of our universe. And so I thought, wow, what an interesting update, and that kind of makes sense to me, I guess, because we don't see a regular pattern of exactly where all the galaxies are. They seem to be scattered all over the place. So this might be something that we also expect from multiple Big Bangs happening all at once, and perhaps simultaneously, and some not, at all different locations. I don't know. I'm just guessing here. But the fact is, if they're talking about a singular Big Bang, and I bring up with them multiple Big Bangs, they seem to dismiss that and want to just ignore that and focus on the main argument still. They say it doesn't matter. I'm thinking, well, maybe it does. If your God's talking to you, then your God should be able to clarify this for you.
Well,
So-
they've got this straw man and they're sticking to it. You know, the whole argument of something can't come from nothing. It is
How do
such.
they know it's not multiple straw men and women?
Well, it's been clarified so many times. I just don't understand. You know, and I mean, Krauss did us a massive disservice by positing that, but at the same time, he was using jargon that, you know, makes sense for physicists. But it's just, you know, how long can you drag this straw man around and beat it for? It's you know, I'm feeling sorry for this poor man.
Poor straw.
Sorry.
Poor straw man.
They must have had the good stuff. I mean, the high quality straw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so something can't come from nothing is just it's really bad.
And if they can't indicate, if they can't confirm whether absolutely nothing is stable or unstable, then they really can't justify the claim that nothing can't come from something can't come from nothing. But that's more philosophy, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're conflating the philosophical nothing with the sort of nothing in physics. So sort of a philosophical nothing, you can say, you know, a lack of llamas in this room. There's, you know, it's nothing.
You can put rules on that. Yeah.
Just so you can sort of wrap your mind around the idea of no thing philosophically, but, you know, we can't replicate that in any way. We can't. Even stuff like antimatter is still something. So
They conflate space-time with time as an abstract concept.
Yeah.
That's if you can even tie them down at all. They normally jump from cosmology to biology to philosophy.
Quantum mechanics.
Every color of the rainbow.
Maybe some of them want to be tied down, and that's the problem. But
just not the
Amy can help them with
rainbow, and just not getting tied down by them.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Yes.
You know what? This did do one thing for me. I do want to read that book. I really do. I want to see, what was it? I want to see all the dialogues that have been written out. Like, can we just call them scripts at this point? Like, Oh, they've got these conversations where you can follow along. That's a script. That's just a script. Come on, call a spade, guys. Like,
Oh, that's why somebody said they're Darth Dawkins' Titan said they're Darth Dawkins' grandsons.
I spoke to
really?
Darth Dawkins again just a couple nights ago, and
they don't seem like pre-suppers to me.
yeah, and I tried to use his own argument against his position, but he has updated his argument. So the loophole that I was going to use is gone. So disappointed. I tried to coax him into it. He wasn't falling for it.
And they're not pre-suppers. I would say at one point this was like a theology apologetics like buffet 101 course, whatever you want to call it. And like I think at one time, I think that pre-suppers tend to lean on this fundamental, what is your everything type of nonsense that I would say is very similar to the lines of contingency arguments and stuff.
Well, pre-suppers, I mean, they generally won't go looking for, a reason why a necessary being is necessary. But they generally won't go into that. They won't even discuss sort of a moral argument or anything like that. They will just say, it exists, now prove me wrong kind of thing. They won't even go in for all this evidentialist stuff. It just isn't something that they entertain at all, in my experience anyway.
Ooh. Night. We are sending love.
Good night.
And I can't say it enough. I know I sound like a broken record, but Christian, Muslim, pantheist, deist, come one, come all, not on my sheets. Maybe a marker, Randolph's. No. We love these two gentlemen. And we're just looking for evidence that God is real. Actually, the key always is good evidence, because it's very easy to tell us or even report that 500 people saw a miracle or something that broke the laws of nature. But it's always when replication is asked for that things seem to crumble.
Good night, Cryptomeria.
Ooh, nice and love.
I'm actually amazed Darth talked to you again, Randolph. Wasn't he really mad last time you were on Modern Day Debate? Like, wasn't he just furious at you?
I haven't spoken with him on Modern Day Debate, but I did speak with him on MathPig's channel once. And but last night, the time he got really mad at me was when Canadian Catholic had Lawrence Krauss on, and then Graham Oppie, and I got a chance to speak with Graham Oppie before he left. And then Darth Dawkins wanted to speak with me, and so I said, okay, as long as it's recorded. So Canadian Catholic recorded and posted it up. So, and then we went back and forth there. That was quite a few months ago, and it got to a point where he was yelling at me that there's no difference between implicit and explicit. And then after that, he went on a 90-minute rant. He rage quit, and then in his own channel, somebody else recorded it and sent me a copy. Ranted for 90 minutes angrily about me, and calmed down a few times when people asked him about Christianity, and then he went back to ranting again and again. And then he tried to dox me, and he found our mailbox service which happens to be at a 7-Eleven. So there's 24-hour access, which is normal here. Small businesses do this here a lot. And it's because you don't want customers knocking on your door at 3 a.m. because they have no concept of time and stuff like that. So when you don't have an office, you get a mailbox. And so I don't have an office set up for Canadian Atheists because the organization is so small we can't afford that yet. Yeah, so anyway, he went on and on about that. They made jokes about new members getting free Slurpees and all kinds of stuff, and then they ranted more. And 90 minutes nonstop. Tom Rabbit covered about 30 minutes of it, then cut it off. I suspect because he wasn't sure if the doxing was actually successful or not. It wasn't. They found the mailbox address, which is the address I want them to find. And that's, but they have, the one a couple nights ago, he got angry again.
Right.
And I got some music. And he, after he left, and this one's really funny. I just posted the link in the public live text chat here. Supreme Leader Kim is the fellow's name. Has posted this one, and
That's where my debate with Darth Dawkins was as well, or quote unquote debate, because it was me just going into Discord trying to talk with them. But you know what it becomes with.
Yeah, he sets up a deceptive channel now. He's in a Discord called Just Politics, not Politics and Religion. He's left that one.
It's better. I actually know it's not better, but it's just funny because calling yourself Atheist Helpline is
that's
arrogant.
deceptive.
It would be like me creating a channel called Theist Helpline, and I could just not be that big of an asshole.
He does that. He calls it Atheist Helpline, which is deceptive because it gets atheists in there, and all he wants to do is angrily try to corner you and interrogate you,
berate you, and call you names. And...
Yeah, it doesn't. That stuff never phases me. But a lot of people afterwards apologize. But when this one after Kim, and you'll hear it in the recording after he's gone, and there's all kinds of time indexes I put into there as well for Kim to post. Eventually, I'll post it on my channel as well. But I want Kim to recover his numbers because he had to restart his channel. He's kind of a neat guy, posting up all this Darth Dawkins stuff like Tom Rabbit does. And he, after Darth quit, then people started talking. Wow, their tones changed. It was so interesting. There's a lot of people don't like him. Most of his audience don't like him. When I was talking with him, they were typing in the Discord chat, keep trolling, troll harder. It's like, I'm not trolling the guy. Why do you think I'm trolling? I'm really just trying to have dialogue. But afterwards, they're saying, they informed me that he talks about me frequently. I thought,
Randolph, or talks about you.
Apparently, he talks frequently about me. I had no idea. So
I hope the hate sex is just fantastic.
But it makes sense because his supporters have been contacting me for quite a while, wanting to arrange for him and I to have another conversation, preferably as a formal debate. I've been encouraging.
Can I just ask you? I only have one request, Randolph. Okay, yeah. I can see you can kind of make graphics up there. Come on, those all look cool and stuff. All right, you just need to make a single counter. Okay. It's just got to be on one side. It has to be questions that I have answered, and on the other side has to be questions that he has answered.
What graphic are you talking about?
Okay, I just need, it's like a clock or a counter. You just need to count every time that he answers a question and every time that you answer a question. And take it, I think James said go for like 10-1. So if you even get 10 questions that you have answered of his and he'll answer one, consider yourself lucky.
What's remarkable about this video is there's a point in there where he apologizes for making a mistake. But it's a trivial mistake.
Okay.
Well, he apologized when he said that Amy was acting like a snot-nosed 14-year-old. Then he apologized to 14-year-olds and said more like a 12-year-old.
Look, but you gotta get into the new show.
The graphics that are there, I didn't create those. That was put up by Kim. So, Supreme Leader Kim. Yeah.
There you go. Apology to insult somebody more, like really. You know,
it was just. I'll chat with them once in a while. We'll see where it goes next time. It's. I don't want to make a daily occurrence of this, but I don't mind chatting with him once in a blue moon. It's kind of interesting to see where he's at, and see how.
And I'm addicted to all of these people. Like I want to ask him questions. I, with Catholic traditionalists, would not just come on and like lobby like a Molotov cocktail of a question and then never respond. Like I wish that people like him would just join the live stream. They could say anything that they wanted as long as it's TOS, and I would. I mean, let them have their point of view. We'd probably bat it down because we're skeptic non-believers.
That's probably a good bet. Yeah.
But
Let me see. He's online right now. I could try to send him an invite.
I mean, we are actually about to go into outros right now, Randolph. But
you know what he'd call it? He'd call that evasion and avoidance. And
I mean,
it looks like he's not online. He's not online, so it doesn't matter.
Well, I've talked to him once, right? Once and once alone on T-Jump server, and I got kicked so fast. Like, it was basically what he said, made a point and then asked a question, and I said, okay, I'll address that point, then ask the question. He's like, no, you've got to do what I say. And I said, no, I don't have to answer anything the way you want me to. I will address this point. And I was just kicked. And that was the entire limit of my experience with him. Like, I didn't even get to 5 minutes.
He's very insecure, I sense, because he always wants to have the power to moderate whatever conversation he's running. So you got to play by his rules, or he is going to kick you because he won't tolerate that.
Yeah, I just don't see why you would have to answer what somebody's asked in the way that they want you to. Like, that's nonsensical.
It's because he lacks confidence in the merit of his ideas.
Well, then a whole lot of inversion is going on because he is overcompensating.
Because if he was truly confident, that his ideas were had merit, then and could stand on their own, he wouldn't need those powers, would he?
No.
And once again, I keep on waiting for Christians to come on. I keep on waiting for Muslims to come on, Jews, Hindus. I mean, you could invite him. We're about to go into the after show and go into the Discord. I have been
He's
waiting
not online
for,
right now. So, yeah.
Oh, well, I've been waiting for people to defend their faith. Gosh darn it.
Reach out to Nadir, the one I debated with in December, a modern day debate that Mark liked my introduction so much. Thanks again for that, Mark. I appreciate your kind words on that. It did mean a lot to me, still does. He said that he would love to talk scientific miracles, or something to that effect after the show. So, try to reach out to him. I can take a look and see if I have some contact info for him, but I don't think he's really out there all that much. So but who knows how to reach him is James from Modern Day Debate. So, and he'd probably be willing to come on here and talk and try to convince everybody. He's could have a good conversation. Like he's
James
cordial.
as I can, because he's always up to his eyeballs in work. So.
A lot of Muslims seem to not like the way he debated, though. Afterwards, if you look at the comments on the YouTube video, there's quite a few Muslims in there that are mad at him. Some of them even contacted me and gave me tips on how to debate him better in the future.
Well, I would say that all of those believers need to come on to Modern Day Debate as well as right on here, because I keep on
Come on the dress.
Yeah, I will say. But we are about to head into outros because I don't think we are going to get a lot of evidence that God is real tonight. We definitely didn't get a lot of new proof for God. We seem to have gotten 1,000-year-old arguments. So,
How old is the Kalam?
Say that again?
How old is the Kalam argument? It's a bit newer, isn't it? A bit more contemporary.
It is a bit newer. It got
at least 1,000 years old
because of skeptics and non-believers and the Muslim community coming into contact with Christians and other other faiths. The funny thing is that it eventually got picked up by people like William Lane Craig, and so it's kind of a modern thing for Christians and I would say maybe Orthodox Jews or whatever to use kalam, but it was a Islamic apologetic, maybe almost a reactionary one, to try and defend the faith intellectually, because it turns out that holy books don't really convince many people that don't already believe. And with that, we are going to move into outros. It has been fun. We have been skeptic and ranting on evidence that God is real.
Thanks, James and Amy.
Thank you so very much. Mark was the last
Thanks, Randolph.
join the discussion, which means he's the first one that is going
First
to
in,
start
first
us
out.
off as we bring in the clowns. Woohoo! What is up, Mark? I hope you had a fun time. We enjoyed you being here as always. Where can people find you? And what are your final thoughts? Evidence that God is real.
Yeah, I'm around. I'm usually here, so you can usually find me here a lot of the time. And by the way, that's a mime, not a clown. I feel like you're saying send in the clowns.
You know, that is true. If we're going to be pedantic about the subject, I'm going to grant you that.
That's a debate topic for you. Are mimes clowns? That's the real question we need to be answering. No, this wasn't. This is clickbait. This is not new arguments for God. It's what's his name? Trent Horn wants to sell a book of apparently scripts to people. That's what this is. I'm very dubious as to the
Veracity.
Yeah, just the sincerity of Trent Horn and saying, hey, these are new arguments kind of thing. I didn't hear anything new. Maybe hidden in the book of conversations between fake atheists and fake theists, there's some new ways of structuring the arguments, but who knows? I didn't hear anything new from this. It's just the old tired stuff again, recycled and revamped, put in the thrift shop window and dragged out by Trent Horn. Really, I mean, yeah, same stuff. But thank you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed myself. I really missed you, Amy. I missed the show. It's so here. So good to see you, Randolph. I hope that some things will come on so we can have a discussion. I can be quite nice. It's been known to happen occasionally. I'll be good. But yeah, a lot of this. And I don't know why we're having this rise to platonics all of a sudden, like sort of these idealized forms. I don't know why if you can envision a perfect God, it has to exist. These kind of really platonic justifications for these idealized forms and idealized morals existing. I have no idea. It's a resurgence that we never needed and nobody ever wanted, and I don't know why. But thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the audience, and all the best.
Woohoo! Lovely having you as always, Mark. And all right, we're moving right down the line. We started off our open mic, which means we're handing it off to Randolph Richardson. Are you telling me you're the godfather of atheism? I hope you had
Got
a
any
fun
evidence?
time tonight. Where can people find you? And of course, evidence that God is real. What are your final thoughts?
I think Mark summarized it all really well. I also wanted to say when I tuned in here, because I didn't tune in right from the beginning, there's James sitting there and his cat sitting on his shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
That, and I made a comment in the live chat that, James has an awesome cat.
He's an awesome.
I hope you
Randolph.
have pictures of that. That's great. Does your cat do that a lot?
He does, yeah.
It looks awesome on screen. It really does. There you are talking casually, and this cat is right there. It's
He just perched on my shoulder. Yeah, just watching this.
What Randolph is trying to say is you look like an anime character. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you got to do that more, James. Get your cat coordinated into there more.
Cats like to know what's going on. They like to watch what you're doing. They're very interested.
Yeah,
They're
great.
in.
It adds quality to the show. It's probably good for ratings too. Cats are always good for YouTube ratings. So yeah, you've got it made, man. So yeah, and again, congratulations on the live in-person debate, Amy. That's wonderful to be part of something like that. I think something I'd love to do some point. You've actually done it now. It's great. That's amazing. So
thank you so very much, and I'm looking forward to the very soon time when you are doing the exact same thing. Randolph means 2023 DebateCon.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, we'll see. Mostly what we want to do with Canadian Atheists is organize more of an event with presentations, not debates at this point. I think we need to get better known before we actually hosted a debate. And there is an event coming up in April that I will be involved in. That'll be at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre, and I will be promoting that as soon as everything's finalized to the point where it can be promoted. And it's coming pretty close to that. Now, I'm not organizing that one, but I've been brought in to help with all that stuff here in BC and Vancouver. So that'll be Vancouver, BC, Canada. So I'll be posting that like crazy when the time comes up to start doing that. Once the organizer's ready to say all the ducks are in a row, it's definitely go. We're going to do it. So that should be coming up pretty soon. So
Ducks? No.
There's going to be some famous people there presenting, and so it's good. One of them is an astronaut who's actually been in space a few times, I think. So there's and some other scientists. It'll be quite an interesting event. There's also I'm going to be in some kind of a show this coming weekend on Sunday at 10 o'clock Central Time or 8 o'clock a.m. I'm talking about here, 8 o'clock Pacific Time, and I'll be announcing that as well. They don't have live streaming, but they're announcing it to quite a large audience, so I'll be trying to live stream it on my channel, and we'll see how that goes. And there will be a Discord link for anybody who wants to get in there. The challenge, there's going to be a panel of a number of us there, and I was invited into this as well, so I'm very happy with that. The challenge is going to be to try to convince us on the panel that a goddess or a god is real. Originally, they went with the subject of just, is a god real? And I suggested, let's add goddess in there, right? So you know how I am. I'm pro-equality and all that.
Randolph, when we don't believe in gods, when we cancel superstition, I think we need to be as egalitarian as possible.
Yeah.
So all superstition.
That's right.
So I had them. I suggested adding that. Everybody liked it. They said, "Yeah, sure, let's do this. Yeah, if they can convince us of a goddess, that's just as good. Why not?" So, and here I am. You can see that scrolling above me. I have this inclusion right here as well, defining atheism. So, an absence of belief in deities or goddesses and gods. So, it's a fun little thing I do that I find interestingly is quite annoying to some religious people. I'm not doing it with the intention of being annoying, but I'm not going to stop, because if it does annoy people, good. Maybe it'll cause them to.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
So yeah, but thank you very much for hosting this. And if anybody wants to find the organization, go to www.canadianatheists.ca. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/Randolph Richardson, and that's Randolph spelled with an F, not a PH, no matter what autocorrect tells you. Thanks, everybody, and thank you, everybody in the audience, for tuning in tonight.
Thanks,
And
Randolph.
it's Slurpee if you do go to the Canadian Atheists.
That's right, baby. Right there. And all right. Thank you so very much, Randolph.
I like your updated font here. It looks really good.
We're getting as fancy as can be. Thank you so very much, Randolph. And honestly, thank you so very much, both of you. It was an honor
thank you,
as
Mark.
always. But we are handing it over to the captain, which I think is Gizmo, but
Him,
also
yeah,
James as well.
He's running the show now.
I hope you had a fantastic night. We skeptic and ranted on evidence that God is real. They told us it was new proofs. It turned out that they had microwaved 1,000-year-old arguments.
Yeah, arguments brought back from the dead, but like I said, it's all they have. So, I mean, you kind of got to give them a pass on that because, yeah, it's really all they have. These old recycled arguments that we've heard over and over again, but that's all they've got. So, still fun to swat them down every time, and we will. So thanks, guys, for tuning in, and we will be back Friday and Saturday with the 2 debate after shows. Thanks, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, James.
Thank you so very much, James, and the producer, Gizmo.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gizmo.
Executive producer.
Exactly right. And I do want to just send everyone out there, especially those who are at their work days or soon to be work days, because that's what we really are doing this podcast for. Sending love, and I hope you all had a fun time on this episode of Skeptic and Ranting. Evidence that God is real, where tonight we watched a video called Evidence That God is Real. New proof for God with will someone please buy my book? Trent Horn? Trent? No one.
Buy my DVDs.
Buy my
You
DVD.
need to
15
take a
foot.
page from Ken Hoven's salesmanship.
That's right. You need also the commander level from the channel Catholic Truth, and had a fun time with some age-old arguments. I do want to thank my co-host James W. along with our guests Randolph and Mark, along with all the people in chat, are awesome to make this stream so great, and lovely viewers like you who make this channel even possible. If you enjoyed the show, please like, follow, or subscribe, because then you get access to that bell icon to hit to all to see our premieres or join our live streams. Hi, interwebs. After the show, we will be heading over to the Skeptic and Ranting Discord server, the link of which is in the description below. Or hey, leave a comment once the video's done.
Woohoo!
Woo. Lastly, if you'd like to help us make even more content, we offer some perks for our supporters by checking out our Patreon at patreon.com/Amy Newman. I am Amy Newman, and we will see you all on the next episode of Skeptic Ball.
Good night, guys.
Good night, everyone.